2022, this is your wake-up call. When we look into the scriptures, sometimes we would wonder what responsibility do we have to be prepared to give answers. We oftentimes tell everybody that the scriptures have all the answers. If you would just look to the scriptures, you would find the answers. And that often is our scapegoat when we are not well prepared for maybe what somebody would ask us about our faith. And so this week we're going to take just a few days this week. I've been requested, and we're going to look at just sharing our faith from the simplest, just from the simplest perspective of how do I talk with others about my faith. And so we're going to start at the very beginning and what the Bible would say about how we're to approach people about our faith. And sometimes I know it's intimidating or maybe a daunting thought to think that I am going to stand in front of somebody else and begin to speak to them about my faith. Today, in our society, it's a very volatile subject, a subject that can go sideways really fast, depending on who you're talking to. And it shouldn't be that way. It certainly shouldn't be in a way that any Christian ever thinks that they have to be timid or ashamed or scared to speak about what they believe concerning Jesus Christ. Now, in the book of 1 Peter, chapter 3, Peter's writing, he said, "But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear." Now, he said, make sure that Jesus is Lord, basically. He says, make sure that he's Lord of your heart. And he goes on, and he said, be always ready to give an answer to any man that might ask you about the hope that is in you. Now, I think that's fair. If we were to look from the scriptures, I think it's very fair for him to say, you should be ready to give an answer on a Monday morning as to why you went to a worship service yesterday. Many people would say, well, I enjoy the preacher, or I enjoy the singing, I enjoy the worship, my kids enjoy the kids program. Why do you go to that church? And so if you were asked that question this morning as you go about your daily business, many of you would give those answers. You would give the answers about the choir, the youth group, the preacher, the maybe the activities, the joy group, or the young adults group, so on and so forth, when truly the answer should begin with Jesus Christ. You know, if we're going to have any conversation with anybody about our faith, then it must begin with the Lord. I remember early on in my Christian life, there were many people that wanted to teach you evangelism, and they wanted to teach how to talk to somebody about your faith, and they would always begin with a verse. They would always begin with Romans 3:23. And Romans 3:23 is it's one of the most condemning verses in the Bible. It says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And we would lead with that. And as they were teaching us, they said, well, if you want to share your faith with somebody, this is how you begin. And I thought, that's a downer right off the beginning. And so I would rather choose to begin with Jesus. You know, if we're going to share our faith, then it's not going to be about us. It's going to have to be about him. It's not going to be about what we've done or where we've been or how we've come through things. It's going to be about him and how he's brought us through things and how that he's done things in our life. So the first step in sharing your faith is understanding that Jesus is first and that we come second. As we're looking into this 1 Peter chapter 3, he says, with meekness and fear, having a good conscience. And so the verses all surrounding 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 15 talk about our attitude and how we're to conduct ourselves around people, that we can retain our testimony, and that when we go to speak about the hope that is in us, we don't have to do it defensive, and we don't have to do it with anger, and we don't have to do it with arrogance, but rather we can let a hurting world today know that there is a Savior that loves them, that cares for them, that bled and died for them, and that their sins can be forgiven. And so let's start there. And this Monday, as you go about your day, let's start with Jesus. Not with you, not with anything else. Let's just start with Jesus. When somebody asks you, Why did you go to church yesterday? Well, let's start with Jesus. When somebody asks you, why do you worship? Let's start with Jesus. Jesus first. And then we'll move from there, all right? So let's share our faith properly. Let's be a good witness. Nothing worse than a sour face and a dark heart trying to tell somebody about Jesus. But rather, let's go forward with a smile on our face and a little spring in our step and allow the world around us to know the reason for the hope that is in us. It's Jesus. Well, I hope that you have a great Monday. I hope that the Lord blesses you abundantly, and I look forward